The Last Starship, a sci-fi thriller of survival, discovery, and cosmic horror prologue space, is not empty. For centuries, we believed the void between the stars was nothing more than a vast, infinite expanse. Cold, silent, lifeless. We were wrong. Something moves in the darkness. A force older than the stars themselves. It does not destroy, it erases. Entire worlds vanish, leaving no trace that they ever existed. No ruins, no echoes, just silence. Now it is coming for us. Earth's greatest minds once dismissed the warnings. Anomalous signals from deep space, the faint whispers of stars winking out. Until the day Saturn disappeared. One moment the planet's rings gleamed in the sunlight. The next, they were gone. No explosion, no debris, only absence. The dark matter wave is spreading. Jupiter will be next. Then Mars. Then Earth. Humanity is out of time. But beneath the ice of Antarctica, something ancient stirs. A relic buried before the first civilizations rose. A ship humming with forgotten power. It is not of our world. It is not of our time. And it has been waiting. Chapter 1. The Final Transmission. NASA Deep Space Monitoring Facility, Houston, Texas. Say that again. Dr. Evelyn Carter's voice was flat, her grip tightening around the armrest of her chair. She stared at the trembling technician. Standing in front of her, his face drained of color, his mouth opened, closed, then finally, Saturn is gone. The words didn't make sense. Gone? A planet that had existed for 4 billion years, a gas giant so large you could fit 760 Earths. Inside it, just gone. She turned to the massive display screen at the front of the control room. It showed nothing. Where Saturn should have been, a place where it had always been, was now just an empty void. The Cassini-2 probe, which had been orbiting the planet, was silent. No response, no wreckage, no anything. She forced herself to breathe. Check the sensor logs. A second technician, fingers dancing across his keyboard, murmured in disbelief. It's like the data never existed. Cassini-2's last signal came through 6 minutes ago. Everything after that, blank. The planet, the rings, the moons, Titan, Enceladus, it's all just gone. The control room erupted into chaos. People shouting, typing furiously, slamming, headsets onto desks. The air was thick with panic, a sharp contrast to the sterile white lighting overhead. Evelyn barely noticed. She was staring at something else now. A secondary warning had appeared in the top right corner of the display. A new anomaly detected. Her heart pounded. "What's the new reading?" she asked, keeping her voice even. The technician swallowed hard. "It's moving, Dr. Carter." She stiffened. "Moving where?" A shaky breath. "Toward Jupiter. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Silence. 6 hours. Jupiter was gone in 6 hours. Then Mars. Then Earth. Her hands were ice cold. She turned to Commander James Harlow, standing near the back of the room, his arms folded across his broad chest. He was a man who had survived 3 near-fatal missions, a legend in aerospace history. He looked rattled. He met her gaze. "It's time." Evelyn nodded. "We need to activate the ship." Antarctica, classified research site. Theta 93 miles beneath the ice, something stirred. It began as a low hum, a resonance so deep it vibrated through the rock itself. Deep in the underground facility, a team of engineers and scientists scrambled around a massive metallic structure, their breath visible in the frigid air. It was a vessel unlike anything built by human hands. Smooth, seamless, its dark silver hull covered in alien glyphs. For over 70 years, the ship had remained dormant beneath the Antarctic ice. The best minds had studied it, theorized about its purpose. Now, for the first time, it was awakening. Inside the main control room, Dr. Richard Vasquez, the lead researcher, tapped rapidly on his screen. "Power levels are spiking. Something's happening." The ship's exterior pulsed with light, deep blue veins of energy racing along its surface. Then the whispering began. Not from the speakers, not from any external system. It was in their heads. You have waited long enough. It is time. A shiver crawled down Evelyn's spine. She'd studied the ship for years, but it had never spoken, never acknowledged them, until now. Prepare for activation sequence, Vasquez ordered. His voice was steady, but his fingers trembled as they danced across the holographic interface. Harlow, standing at Evelyn's side, exhaled. You think this thing will actually fly? Evelyn didn't answer right away. Her eyes were locked onto the ship. The Last Starship. No one knew where it had come from, not really. It was buried in ice long before humanity built its first cities, before humans even knew how to tame fire. It was not meant for them, but it was their only chance. It has to, she said finally, because if it didn't, Earth would be next. Mission control. NASA launch sequence initiated. Across the world, the event was being broadcast to the highest levels of government, the United Nations, every major space agency. Humanity was witnessing its last, desperate gamble. As the ship's main engines roared to life, the ice shattered. Huge fissures split open, sending avalanches crashing into the frozen abyss. The ground trembled, and then the Last Starship rose. It ascended, breaking free from its ancient tomb, rising higher and higher, piercing the clouds. Every screen across NASA lit up with a single transmission from the ship's unknown interface. Message: a warning. Prepare for darkness. Then the ship shot into space, vanishing into the void. The mission had begun, and something was waiting for them. Chapter 2. The Void Beyond the Last Starship. High Earth Orbit. The hum of the ship was alive. Evelyn Carter had been aboard for less than 5 minutes, and she could feel it. A deep vibration beneath her feet, like standing on the chest of a sleeping giant. The walls pulsed with faint blue light, as if the vessel itself was breathing. This thing is incredible, whispered Lieutenant Raj Patel, one of the ship's mission engineers. His hands glided over the seamless metal walls. No rivets, no bolts, just a smooth, flawless surface. It's not a thing, Vasquez murmured. It's something more. And he was right. The Last Starship wasn't just alien technology, it felt conscious. It had been waiting, and now it was taking them somewhere. Mission control. NASA. Status? Back on Earth, Commander Harlow's voice was calm, but his knuckles were white as he gripped the console. A technician scanned the readings. The ship is accelerating, more than expected. How much more? A long pause, then, it's leaving the solar system. Harlow's blood ran cold. What? It bypassed Mars. We had projected it would reach Jupiter, but it's moving faster. Beyond light speed, that wasn't possible. Even with the best theoretical propulsion, nothing could break the speed barrier. And yet, on the giant display, the trajectory showed a curving line out of the solar system, not on a human-planned course, but one dictated by the ship itself. Where the hell is it taking them? Harlow whispered. No one had an answer. The Last Starship. Deep space. The ship screamed as it punched through the edge of the solar system. Not a physical sound, but something deeper. A reverberation in their bones, their minds, Evelyn's. Vision blurred as a sudden, sharp pressure filled the cabin, like she was being pulled in 100 directions at once. Then, silence. The stars outside shifted. Raj stumbled back from the window, his face pale. That's not how space is supposed to look. Evelyn turned and froze. The stars were wrong. They no longer twinkled like distant suns. They breathed, shifting in and out of existence, as if reality itself was flickering. And then, she saw it. Beyond the veil of warped space, a structure. No, not a structure, a graveyard. Unknown region, the event horizon. They were surrounded by ships. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Drifting, broken husks, torn apart by something incomprehensible. Some were sleek and angular, others massive and grotesque. Remnants of civilizations. Long forgotten. Raj exhaled. They all came here and they never left. Then a flicker. One of the ships moved, not drifting, shifting, like something had just let it go, and in the distance, beyond the wreckage, something watched, a silhouette against the dark, not a ship, not a being, a presence. The lights inside the Last Starship flickered. The screens pulsed with unknown code, symbols they had never seen before. Then, the ship spoke. Not in words, in warning. They know you are here. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Raj took a step back, whispering, "Who?" New voice answered, not from the ship, not from the crew, from the void. "You do not belong here." Chapter 3. The First Encounter, Unknown Region. The Event Horizon. You do not belong here. The voice did not come from the ship's speakers. It did not echo through the metallic corridors. It was inside their minds. Dr. Evelyn Carter's vision blurred for a moment, her pulse hammering in her ears. The voice was not human, not even close. It was deep, layered, shifting between tones like an instrument that had forgotten what sound it was supposed to make. Her hands clenched into fists. The ship was not empty. She turned sharply to Raj Patel, the ship's systems engineer. His face was pale, his breath shallow. "Tell me you heard that." Raj nodded slowly. "I heard it. So did everyone else." The 5-person crew stood frozen in the dim blue glow of the control chamber, their gazes locked on the central display. The holographic interface flickered erratically, alien symbols scrolling faster than their minds could process. The Last Starship, this ancient, impossible machine, was reacting, and something outside was watching them. Evelyn swallowed hard and forced herself to focus. "Vasquez, scan for life forms." Dr. Richard Vasquez, their lead xenobiologist, tapped at the control panel with shaking fingers. He was usually calm under pressure, but right now, he looked like he was staring into the abyss. The scanner pulsed. Then, it glitched. Lines of unreadable data filled the screen. The ship's internal systems flickered, as if something was interfering with them. The lights overhead dimmed, and then a shadow moved across the viewport. The outer hull, observation deck. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a planet or a structure. It was a presence. It hovered just beyond the shattered wreckage of the ships that had come before them. A vast, towering silhouette against the void. It had no clear form, no defined shape. The closer Evelyn looked, the less sense it made. It was both there and not there. Its edges shimmered, like a mirage, shifting as though the universe itself was trying to reject its existence. And then it moved slow, purposeful, toward them. Raj let out a strangled breath. "What the hell is that?" Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. She didn't know. She didn't want to know. The ship's internal systems surged with static. The control panels sparked. The lights pulsed. And then the whispering returned. Not from one voice, from many, layered, twisting, speaking in a language that was not meant to be heard by human ears. And then, all at once, the voices became one. "Turn back. Mission Control. NASA. Commander, they're gone." Harlow felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean, gone?" The technician's hands shook as he pointed at the screen. "The ship, it's just not there anymore. It vanished off every tracker, every deep space sensor. No signals, no transmissions, nothing." Harlow clenched his jaw. He turned toward the massive display in front of him, showing the last known coordinates of the Last Starship. They had crossed the solar system in seconds. Now, there was only silence. He exhaled slowly, his fingers tightening. Against the metal railing. God help them. The Last Starship, command center. The shadows outside grew. They curled around the shattered remains of the ancient ships, slithering between the wreckage like something alive. Like a predator circling its prey, Evelyn forced herself to speak. "Weapons systems, are there any?" Raj's hands flew over the control interface, but the screens glitched again. The ship's own systems were fighting something. No manual controls. "Everything is automated, and right now it's locked down." A cold dread settled in Evelyn's chest. The ship, this incredible alien relic, was holding them in place. It wanted them here. Vasquez took a sharp breath. "There's something else." Evelyn turned to him. What? He pointed at the main display where alien symbols scrolled faster than the eye could track. The ship's onboard AI, if that's what it was deciphering something. A message, a warning, and then it translated. One phrase. Simple. Terrifying. You are not the first. The meaning hit like a sledgehammer. Hundreds. Ships. Thousands. This graveyard of wreckage floating around them wasn't random. It wasn't some cosmic accident. It was the remains of those who had come before, and they had all failed. A new voice pierced the silence. Low, hollow. Not from the ship, not from the crew, from the thing in the void. You will fail too. And then, the lights died. The ship was plunged into darkness, and something stepped inside. Chapter 4. The thing in the darkness. The last starship, the command center. The lights died. For a single breathless moment, there was nothing, only the sound of Evelyn Carter's own heartbeat, hammering in her ears like a war drum. Then, a slow, scraping sound somewhere within the ship, inside. Raj Patel swore under his breath, fumbling with his console. The controls were unresponsive, flickering with lines of alien code that shifted too fast to read. We've lost main power, he hissed. Backup systems aren't kicking in. It's like something's overriding everything. Evelyn's throat was dry. No, not something. She turned toward the viewport. The shadows had moved. The massive, formless void outside the ship was no longer just circling. It was pressing inward, shifting like smoke, tendrils stretching toward the hull. And then, very clearly, a figure appeared. Unknown region. Inside the void it was humanoid, but wrong, too tall, too thin. Its limbs were slightly too long, its joints bending at angles that made Evelyn's stomach churn. It had no face, only a void where a face should be, a shifting, flickering absence of light. It did not walk. It glided, as though the very fabric of reality warped beneath its feet. Vasquez took a step back, his voice barely above a whisper. That's not possible. The air grew heavy, not with sound, but with something deeper. A pressure that squeezed at their chests, pushing into their skulls. It wasn't speaking in words. It was speaking through them. The ship shuddered. The walls groaned as though something vast was pressing against them from the outside. Then, the whispering returned. Thousands of voices, some screaming, some pleading, some in languages that no human had ever spoken. And then, the voices became one. They lied to you. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She felt the words as much as she heard them, a deep, resonant tremor in her bones. Raj gritted his teeth. Who the hell is they? For the first time, the entity moved toward them. The screens in the control room flared to life, symbols flashing across them at impossible speed. The ship was responding, fighting something. Then, the translation appeared. The Builders. Evelyn's blood ran cold. The Builders. The ones who had created the Last Starship. The ancient race that had left it buried beneath the Antarctic ice, waiting for this moment. They built this ship, she whispered. To save us. The shadows around. The entity twisted violently. The temperature in the room plummeted. And then the entity spoke again. No, they built it to feed us. The ship shuddered violently. The air rippled, and suddenly, Evelyn wasn't on the ship anymore. Somewhere else, the echo of time. The void collapsed around her. She was standing on a planet that did not exist, a sky fractured like glass, swirling with colors she had no name for. The ground beneath her feet was ashen, littered with skeletal remains of things too large to be human, and in the distance, a city, not built but grown, massive spiraling towers of organic material reaching toward a dying star. And then, the screaming began. Evelyn turned, her breath catching in her throat. The city was burning. Entire structures collapsed into nothingness, consumed by a shifting, formless black tide. It wasn't fire, It was erasure. The same force that had taken Saturn, the dark matter wave, and standing at the edge of the destruction, the entities. They had no names, no faces, only shifting forms, walking between time itself, watching as the universe collapsed around them. This is what comes. Evelyn clutched her head as the voice pierced her skull, forcing her to witness what had already happened. A civilization, older than Earth, erased, a species that had built wonders beyond comprehension, devoured. And then she saw the last starship, not as it was now, but as it had been before, a vessel not built for escape, not built for salvation, built as an offering. The builders hadn't tried to flee from the entities. They had bargained with them, and when their world fell, they left the ship behind, not as a means of escape, but as a beacon, a trap, a way to lead new civilizations straight into the maw of oblivion. And now, Earth was next. The last starship. Reality snaps. Back Evelyn gasped, collapsing onto the floor of the control room. Her vision blurred. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She was back on the ship. Raj was shouting her name. Vasquez was shaking her shoulder, but all she could hear was the whispering, and then a warning from the ship itself. The last starship had always been quiet, mysterious, never fully revealing its purpose. But now it spoke, and what it said terrified her. "We cannot win. We can only run." The screens flared red. The ship's navigation systems engaged, and then it moved. Faster than light, faster than anything should be able to move. As the void collapsed behind them, as the entities screamed in, rage as the dark matter wave began to spread again, the last starship fled into the unknown, and Earth's last hope vanished into the void. Chapter 5. Into the Eye of the Storm. The last starship. Deep space. The ship lurched. They were moving. No, not just moving, racing. Faster than anything Evelyn had ever felt. Faster than any calculation should have allowed. The stars outside. The viewport blurred into streaks of white light, bending and warping, as if space itself was struggling to keep up with the ship's unnatural velocity. Raj was at his console, furiously typing, but his face was a mask of confusion and fear. "We should be dead," he muttered almost to himself. "The acceleration alone. If we were human, we'd be crushed by the force." Vasquez stepped up, his brow furrowed. "But we're not human anymore. We've crossed over into something else, something beyond." Evelyn turned to face the two of them, her voice shaky but resolute. "We don't have time for this. We need to know what's ahead. Where are we going?" Raj's fingers hovered over the interface. "The navigation systems are trying to make sense of it, but..." He swallowed. "It's chaos. The ship's AI is malfunctioning. The destination we're heading for isn't even a place. It's more like a point in space-time." "Time?" Evelyn asked, voice tight. "Yes," Vasquez answered, his voice lowering. "I think we're passing through time as we know it. Whatever this ship is doing, it's tearing at the fabric of the universe. We're not just in deep space anymore. We're in some kind of threshold, a limbo between dimensions." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently, as though it had hit an invisible wall. The lights flickered, and the walls hummed with an unnatural intensity. "Everyone, hold on," Raj shouted, and in the next instant they were all thrown against the walls as the ship slammed into something unseen. Evelyn's head spun, but she fought to keep her focus. "Where are we?" she demanded. The edge of the abyss, the stars outside. The viewport had changed. They no longer looked like distant suns, no longer just points of light in a boundless ocean. Now they were strange, pulsing with an eerie, unnatural glow. Some stars had flickered out of existence altogether, leaving voids where they had once burned. Others bent, their shapes twisting in ways that defied natural law. And then there was the vast blackness, not the emptiness of space, but a substance, a dark, oily substance that seemed to pulse and consume everything in its path. It was not a nebula or a galaxy. It was alive, Vasquez's eyes went wide as he stared at the viewport. No, this isn't possible. That's not just dark matter. That's something else. It's like a living entity feeding on the universe itself. Raj was shaking his head. The ship's AI is trying to process the data. It says we've crossed into a region where normal space doesn't apply. This is... He stopped, his eyes wide. This is the place of the dead. Explain, Evelyn snapped. The AI has found evidence, Raj said slowly, his voice barely a whisper. Evidence of countless civilizations, consumed. This region of space is not a natural phenomenon. It's an engine of destruction. It feeds off stars, planets, and entire galaxies, erasing them from existence. Turns everything into nothing. Vasquez nodded gravely. The builders, they weren't trying to escape. They were trying to contain it. This thing in the dark is what destroyed them. And now it's hunting us. Suddenly, the ship lurched. Again. The screens flickered violently, and a screeching noise filled the air, like metal scraping against metal. The walls rippled, distorting as though the very structure of the ship was being pulled in different directions by an external force. Then, a deep hum filled the room, vibrating through their very bones. "Brace!" Raj shouted. But before they could respond, the entire control room shattered into 1,000 pieces of glass-like fragments. The walls collapsed inward, as though the universe itself had decayed around them. For an instant, there was only darkness. Then, a scream. The edge of reality. Evelyn's breath came in short, sharp gasps as she found herself somewhere else. The ship was gone. The void was gone. She was standing, on solid ground. But the landscape around her was alien. A crimson sky hovered overhead, streaked with swirling black clouds. The ground beneath her feet was solid, yet it pulsated with a strange energy, as if it were alive. Jagged, skeletal spires of rock reached up from the surface, and distant, dark shapes moved among them. Too far to make out, but close enough to give her an uneasy feeling. "Where are we?" Vasquez's voice cracked, filled with panic. He stood beside her, eyes wide. "I don't know," Evelyn muttered, trying to focus. "I don't understand." Suddenly, she heard the voice again. The entity. "You cannot escape." It was everywhere, in the air, in the ground. In their minds, Evelyn's heart raced. "What do you want from us?" she shouted into the void. "Why are we here?" the entity responded. "You are the final offering." A wave of realization hit her like a physical blow. The Last Starship. The builders. This ship, it was never meant to escape. It was built to lure. It had captured them, and now the entity in the dark had come to claim them. "We will consume your souls." The Last Starship. Reality collapses back on the ship. Whatever remained of it. Evelyn Carter and the rest of the crew stood frozen as the dark matter wave collapsed around them, wrapping them in its crushing grip. There was no escape. No more running. Only darkness, and in the distance the shadow of the entity loomed, stretching out toward them as the universe erased itself. They were the final offering. Chapter 6. The Final Offering. The edge of the void. The Last Starship. The walls of reality were crumbling. Evelyn could feel it. Everything slipping away. The Last Starship had become little more than a hollow shell, drifting in a space that wasn't supposed to exist. The ship's once pristine systems had long since failed, leaving only the shattered remains of a vessel that had once held the hope of humanity's future. Now it was a cage, trapping them, imprisoning them in a dimension outside of time and space. Raj Patel was on his knees, his hands pressed to his face. We're dead, Evelyn. There's no way out of this. There's nothing left." His voice cracked, desperation leaking through every word. Vasquez stood at the console, staring blankly at the holographic readouts. "The ship's AI it's rewriting itself. It's transforming the systems into something else. I don't understand. It's adapting to the energy of the void, becoming part of it." The realization hit Evelyn like a punch to the gut. The ship wasn't just fighting the dark forces anymore. It was becoming one with them. "We need to find a way to shut it down." Evelyn said, her voice hoarse. We can't let it fully integrate. But even as she spoke, the walls around them twisted. The familiar hum of the ship's engines turned into an eerie whisper. Not a sound, but a presence. The entity was close. You will join us. The voice was a low hum, reverberating through their bones, sinking deep into their minds. The cold air in the room grew heavier. It pressed down on them like a physical force, squeezing the breath from their lungs. The shadows in the corners of the ship moved, swirling like smoke. Raj was gasping for air, his hands clawing at his throat. We can't escape it. It's inside us now. Vasquez's face was pale. The builders. They were offering sacrifices, using ships like this one to trap the entity, to keep it bound. But it was never meant to be a prison. They thought they could control it, but the entity only needs to feed. He turned to Evelyn, his voice cracking. And now it's us. We're the next offering. Evelyn's mind raced. She had to think. The stakes were too high. If they were the offering, then that meant the entity wanted something from them, something fundamental. Wait. She turned sharply to Vasquez. The builders. They didn't just create the ship. They made a bargain with it, didn't they? They were trying to contain the entity by offering it life. Maybe we can turn it around. Vasquez shook his head. We can't bargain with it, Evelyn. It doesn't want life. It consumes life. It devours everything, turning it into nothingness. No, she snapped. Not everything. There's one thing it hasn't consumed. She turned to Raj. The ship. He blinked, confused. The ship? The ship itself, Evelyn repeated. It's not just a vessel. It's an artifact. The builders designed it to hold something powerful enough to bind the entity, and right now, it's holding us in place, just like it held all those other civilizations. If we can reverse the process, if we can access the core systems, we might be able to shut the entity out. We might be able to turn the ship into a weapon against it. But the ship's systems are broken, Raj argued. The AI is beyond any kind of control now. It's part of the entity. There's no way to reverse it. Evelyn's gaze fixed on the flickering displays. The ship's once advanced systems had now become warped, twisted by the very entity they sought to escape. But she could still see traces of the ship's original design, patterns beneath the chaos. The AI wasn't fully corrupted. There was still a way. There has to be a way, she whispered, stepping toward the main console. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A message flashed on the screen. It was a single line of text. You cannot control what you have invited. Evelyn's blood ran cold. This was it. The entity was aware of them. It had been playing them all along, guiding them toward this moment, the moment they would offer themselves, just like every other civilization before them. The ship's AI had been trying to warn them, but it was too late now. They were already too far gone. Do you understand now? The voice now inside their heads rattled Evelyn's thoughts. It was too overwhelming, too powerful. She had to fight back. But the entity's influence was everywhere, inside the ship, inside them. It whispered things to her, terrifying truths about what was coming, about the end. But Evelyn refused to give in. No, she said aloud, her voice defiant. I won't let you win. Not like this. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook. The walls of the ship were cracking. Vasquez! Evelyn shouted, her voice filled with urgency. Find the core. I need to access the heart of the ship. I can feel it. There's a way to turn this around. Vasquez nodded, his eyes wide with fear, but he moved quickly to the ship's central terminal. The ship's architecture was alien, but they had studied it long enough to understand its systems. He would have to act fast. Evelyn took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the ship's control interface. Her fingers brushed against the interface, a pulsing presence. The entity was reaching out to her, trying to pull her in. She could feel its cold, grasping fingers sinking into her thoughts. But Evelyn fought back. She fought with everything she had. The heart of the ship Vasquez stood before the massive core of the ship, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The core was alive with pulsing light, an energy so powerful that it seemed to bend space itself. He placed his hands on the interface. It's not just a core, it's a containment field. It was never meant to be destroyed. It was meant to hold the entity. Suddenly, a wave of energy surged through the ship, disrupting the very fabric of reality. The entity screamed, its voice breaking into thousands of overlapping echoes. The walls around them warped and twisted, as though the very dimension was tearing apart. Vasquez slammed his hands down onto the console. "Come on, you will fail." The entity's voice was everywhere, inside their heads, inside the ship. But this time Evelyn didn't back down. She was driven by one truth. The ship had been created to hold the entity, and it could hold it again. "No, we won't." Evelyn stepped forward, rallying her resolve. "We will stop you." The ship's core flared to life. A hum like a massive engine started deep within its heart, and for a brief moment it seemed like the universe held its breath. Chapter 7. The Final Confrontation. The Heart of the Ship. Containment Chamber. The core throbbed, its hum reverberating through the walls of the ship as though the entire vessel was being consumed by its power. Every panel, every light, flickered erratically, caught between two worlds, reality and nothingness. The entity was trying to break through, to rip the fabric of existence open and devour them all. Evelyn Carter's hands shook as she gripped the console, fighting to keep her focus. Behind her, Vasquez worked furiously, his fingers moving across the alien interface. "Come on, come on, come on," he muttered, his voice tinged with panic. The ship around them groaned as though in pain, the walls buckling under the pressure. "We need to hold this together," Evelyn shouted. "We can't let it break free." But even as she spoke, the darkness in the corners of the room seemed to grow. The entity was inside them, its influence spreading, twisting their thoughts, poisoning their minds. Vasquez turned to her, his eyes wide with terror. "The containment field's not responding. The ship, it's too far gone." Evelyn gritted her teeth. "We can still make this work. There has to be a way to turn the core's power against it. The builders, they created this ship to trap it. If we can just—" The walls trembled again. Suddenly, a high-pitched screech filled the air. The entity's voice pierced their minds, like a blade. "You cannot fight what you have invited." Evelyn stumbled back as the walls around them began to dissolve into blackness. The ship's systems were collapsing, unable to withstand the entity's overwhelming force. The entity's tendrils reached out from the very fabric of the ship's walls, wrapping around their bodies, its touch cold and suffocating. "Get it off!" Vasquez screamed, clawing at his skin as though it were on fire. "We're not supposed to fight it. We can't. It's too strong." Evelyn felt it then, the entity's presence, inside her mind, whispering things she couldn't understand. Its power was suffocating, consuming everything in its path. But deep within the core of the ship, there was still resistance. The ship's systems were fighting back, trying to hold the entity at bay. Suddenly she understood. "The builders didn't try to contain it forever," Evelyn whispered. "They were trying to delay it. The ship was never meant to fight it. It was meant to slow it down long enough for the next civilization to escape. It wasn't built to stop it. It was built to give us time." She looked at Raj, his eyes wild, desperate. "We have to buy enough time. If we can release the core's energy in a focused burst, we might be able to force it back, just long enough to escape." Raj looked at her with disbelief. "Do you even know how to trigger that kind of release?" Evelyn's heart was hammering in her chest, but she nodded. "I know the systems. I know how the builders designed it. The core doesn't just produce energy. It manipulates space itself. If we focus its power, we can create a singularity, an artificial event horizon. It'll pull the entity back into the void, give us enough time to leave." Raj's face went pale. "That's insane. The power needed to do that. It could tear us apart." Evelyn turned toward him, her expression resolute. "If we don't try, we're dead anyway." The containment field, final stage. The ship was beginning to disintegrate around them. The walls flickered like shattered glass, and the very air itself seemed to warp and twist, as though it was being undone by an unseen force. Time itself was starting to lose meaning. In the distance, Evelyn could hear the screaming again, the entity's thousands of voices blending into one monstrous roar. "Do it!" Evelyn shouted. "Now!" Raj's fingers flew over the interface, entering the final command. The core whined under the strain as the singularity generator began to engage. The air grew thick with energy, and the ship's walls began to rip apart. At the seams, the entity screamed, its voice full of rage and hunger, but it was no longer inside them. It was trying to push through, to break free from the containment field. Vasquez shouted, backing away as a pulse of unearthly light shot from the core, surging out in a brilliant beam that expanded like a wave. The walls of the ship shuddered, violently, but the beam of light grew stronger, intensifying as it pushed outward. The entity reared back, its shadowy tendrils screaming in fury as the light pulled it inward. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. And then, the ship exploded. Not in fire, no, it shattered, breaking apart into millions of fragments as the pulse of energy consumed everything in its path. But the core's power wasn't an explosion of matter. It was a reduction, a collapse of everything it touched. The entity screamed one final time before the force of the pulse pulled it into the void. Everything went silent. The void. Aftermath. When Evelyn opened her eyes, the world around her was gone. There was no ship, no space, no stars. She was suspended in nothingness, but it wasn't cold. It wasn't dark. It was as though she was standing in the heart of everything. The very fabric of existence had been torn, and she was now part of something much larger, something unseen. The ship was gone. The crew was gone. The entity was gone. But so were the answers. Her mind raced. What did we do? Did we win? Did we survive? She reached out, but there was nothing to touch, nothing to hold on to. Just an endless empty space. Then, a voice. Faint. Not the entity. A voice full of hope. You were the final offering. But this time the voice wasn't cold. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise, a new beginning. Chapter 8. The New Beginning. The Void. Aftermath. Evelyn Carter floated in the endless expanse, her body weightless, suspended in a sea of nothingness. There was no sensation of cold, no sense of time, no stars, no sound, not even the faint hum of the ship's engines. There was only the hush of silence that stretched on forever. But she wasn't alone. She could feel them. The presence of the other crew members lingered around her, their forms not visible in the void. But their souls, their energy was unmistakable. She could feel the heartbeat of the ship that had once been her home, now reduced to nothing, and yet somehow it had become part of the universe's fabric. Raj. Her voice echoed, but it didn't seem to travel. It simply existed, as if her words were being absorbed by the void itself. Vasquez? Anyone? She waited, but the silence pressed in closer. Then, a flicker of light. It was faint, like a distant star twinkling in the farthest reaches of space. But it was a sign, a pulse of life in the emptiness, and with it came movement. The ground, or what could be called ground, shifted beneath her. The space around her seemed to bend, folding in upon itself. Where are we? She whispered, almost to herself. But the answer came not in words, but in a presence, a feeling of something greater. The voice returned, but this time it was different. It wasn't an entity that fed, but a force that guided. You are the architects of the next epoch. Evelyn froze, her breath catching in her throat. The voice was deep, resonant, ancient. It was not the entity they had faced, but something older, something that had been waiting for them. Architects, Evelyn whispered, confusion filling her voice. Of what? The presence responded in a wave of thought, a rush of images that flashed across her mind. She saw stars being born in the heart of galaxies. She saw entire civilizations, new ones, rising from the ashes of those that had been destroyed. She saw the end of the universe, not as a void, but as a beginning, an ever-expanding cycle that had no true end. The creators had been right. The entity had been but a part of a greater force, a force that had been trying to reset the universe, over and over again. But Evelyn and the crew, by fighting back, by offering themselves, had broken that cycle. They had altered the path of fate, setting the stage for something new. She felt it, a shift, deep inside her. A new understanding was taking root in her consciousness. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was becoming. Evelyn's voice trembled. We're not in the universe anymore, are we? No, the voice replied. You are beyond it. But you are still a part of it. The beginning and the end are intertwined. The energy of your ship, your actions, have unraveled time and space, creating a new node in the fabric of existence. What you have done is more than survival. You have altered the balance. You have opened the gate to the next stage. Evelyn closed, her eyes overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. What now? The voice grew softer. The first step is to realize what you have created. Evelyn felt a presence in front of her, an outline, a form, an entity made of light and energy, but not one she had seen before. It was neither malevolent nor benevolent. It was pure in its essence. It was a guardian, one of many that had been waiting for this moment. You will choose your path, the voice said, now a physical presence in her mind. You will rebuild, and you will guide the souls of the lost into the new. The Last Starship. What remains? Raj Patel awoke in a cold sweat. His eyes snapped open to a darkness so profound he thought for a moment he might be dead. But then he felt it, the presence of something familiar, something old. He wasn't in his bunk anymore. The walls of the ship were gone. There were no screens, no consoles, no corridors. It was pure void. But he wasn't alone. He felt a hand on his shoulder, and when he turned, it was Vasquez standing there, his expression blank, his eyes wide with confusion. Vasquez? Raj asked, his voice shaky. Where are we? Vasquez didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around as though trying to make sense of their surroundings. Finally, he spoke. I don't know, but I think we're alive. Somehow. Raj's heart skipped a beat. Alive? Vasquez nodded slowly. We're not dead, Raj, but we're not in the ship anymore, and this place, it's not like anything I've ever seen before. The air around them shimmered, and Raj blinked, suddenly aware of a shifting presence. It was like the fabric of reality itself was moving. The darkness around them seemed to fold, revealing strange shapes, shapes that defied explanation, shapes that had no right to exist in this plane of reality. What? What is this? Raj whispered. The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate. Slowly a figure began to materialize in front of them. Evelyn Carter stood there, but she was different. Her body was glowing with energy, light streaming from her like the radiance of a star. Yet her face was calm, serene. There was no fear in her eyes, no desperation. She seemed to have transcended everything she had once known. Evelyn? Raj's voice was shaky, but she smiled, holding out her hand to them. You made it, she said softly. We've all made it. But our journey is far from over. Vasquez stepped forward, his confusion deepening. What are you talking about? Where are we? And where is the ship? The ship is gone, Evelyn said, her voice filled with both finality and promise. But we're not lost. We're part of something greater now. The presence around them seemed to shift again, revealing glimpses of what lay beyond. A new world, a new dimension forming, a new universe slowly coming into being. We're at the edge of everything, Evelyn continued. And we have to decide what comes next. We have to decide what we will create. A new dawn, the void around them began to glow. Slowly, the shapes in the distance became clearer. Worlds. Entire new realities forming from the energy of the void. Evelyn felt the pull of these new worlds, like an ancient gravity, drawing her in. "We have a choice," she said, her voice firm. "We can rebuild what was lost, or we can forge something entirely new. We're the architects now?" Raj looked at her, his eyes full of wonder. "You're right, we're not just surviving anymore. We're shaping the future." Vasquez stepped forward, his fear replaced by something else, determination. "Then let's create something worth living for." And as the light from the new universe bathed them, they all stepped forward together, into the unknown. Chapter 9. The Cosmic Dawn Beyond the Void. The new reality. Evelyn, Raj, and Vasquez stood at the precipice of the unknown, their bodies bathed in the radiant glow of the newly formed universe. The space around them seemed to ripple and stretch, like the surface of a vast ocean, its tides pulling them forward into a realm of infinite possibilities. The air, if you could call it air, felt alive, thick with energy. Every breath they took seemed to echo in their minds, as though the very act of breathing had become a conscious choice, a deliberate act of creation. Evelyn looked out across the horizon, or what passed for a horizon in this realm, where worlds, galaxies, and stars were being woven from the pure essence of the void. They were still part of this vast cosmos, but now they existed outside it, as architects of its future. The limits of what was possible no longer applied. Is this real? Raj's voice broke through her thoughts, his words slow, cautious. "Are we dreaming? Did we actually escape?" "I don't know," Evelyn replied, her voice filled with awe. "But what I do know is that we're here, we made it, and now we have to figure out how to make this our world." Vasquez remained silent, his face shadowed by uncertainty. He had been the most reluctant to accept the idea that they had transcended their previous existence, that they had passed beyond the point of no return. But now, standing in this cosmic expanse, his doubts began to fade. For the first time, Vasquez spoke with a hint of wonder. We're not just survivors anymore, are we? We're the creators." Evelyn turned to him, her gaze steady. "Exactly. We didn't just escape the entity. We've opened the door to new possibilities. The cycle has been broken, and we're here to shape what comes next." A pulse of light shot across the sky, the birth of a star. It shone brighter than anything they had ever seen, its light bending and curving in ways that defied physics. This was no ordinary star, no simple burning ball of gas. This was the essence of creation, the birth of a new reality forged by their very will. Raj's eyes widened. That star. It's different. It feels different. Evelyn nodded, her heart racing. "That's because it is. It's the first of many. We're not just creating stars, we're shaping the fabric of this entire reality. Every decision we make will echo throughout this universe." Vasquez frowned, stepping forward. "But what if we mess up? What if we create something wrong?" Evelyn's gaze softened. "We don't have all the answers, but we can learn. We have the chance to create a reality where we choose our path, where we guide the cosmos towards something better. We're not perfect, but we have the chance to try." A deep silence settled over them as they each looked out across the expanse. The stars were beginning to form, their shapes flickering like distant thoughts awaiting their direction. Then, a voice, one they had all felt but not heard, spoke again. It was the same voice that had guided them here, the one that had welcomed them to the edge of existence. "You are the first architects, but you are not alone." The ground beneath them quivered. The stars above them began to pulse as though alive with energy, and a new form, shifting, ever-changing, appeared before them. It was an entity, but one they had never encountered before. It was neither human, nor alien, neither machine nor organic. It was a thought made flesh, a being composed of pure possibility. "Who are you?" Evelyn asked, her voice steady despite the overwhelming presence before her. "I am what you have created," the being replied, its voice echoing in the air. "I am the manifestation of the potential that lies within this new universe. I am the guardian of creation, the first of many who will help shape what comes next. Raj stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. So, we're not alone. There are others like you? The being nodded. Yes, the fabric of reality is vast, and while you are the first to shape it, others will come, beings of energy, of thought, of will. You will not create alone, but it is your choices that will lay the foundation for the future of this universe. Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest. What do you want from us? Nothing. The being's form rippled like liquid light. You are the creators. You have the power to shape this reality as you see fit, but I am here to guide, to offer insight. You will make the decisions, and I will help you understand the consequences of those decisions. Vasquez, still uncertain, took a step back. And if we get it wrong, what happens then? The being's form shimmered again. The fabric of reality is forgiving. There will be consequences for your choices, but the universe has a way of correcting itself. And if something goes awry, it is in your power to fix it. Evelyn closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the moment. They had crossed into a new realm, a new reality, and they had been given the power to reshape everything. But with that power came responsibility, a responsibility that they could not take lightly. She turned to Raj and Vasquez. We have to make these choices wisely. The fate of this new universe is in our hands. Raj nodded, his expression set with determination. Let's do it. Let's create a world we can be proud of. Vasquez, still unsure but resolute, finally spoke. We can't change everything at once. We have to take it slow, one step at a time. Evelyn smiled at him. One step at a time, she agreed. But we have to move forward. We've been given a second chance, and we can't waste it. Together, they turned their attention back to the stars, to the vast, uncharted expanse that stretched out before them. The first world was beginning to take shape, a planet forming out of the swirling energy of the void. It was the beginning of something incredible, something beyond anything they had ever dreamed, and in that moment they understood. This wasn't just the end of their journey, it was the beginning of a new cosmic dawn. Chapter 10, the cosmic masterpiece, The Nexus. Creation of a new world. Evelyn Carter stood on the edge of the first world they had shaped. The atmosphere was thick with the smell of freshly formed air, and the sky shimmered with a brilliant aurora, as if the very atmosphere itself was alive with energy. The surface of the world was still a blank canvas, but the shape was there. A solid, growing landmass surrounded by oceans of liquid blue, teeming with potential. This is it, Raj whispered beside her, his voice filled with awe. We did it. We've created something real. Evelyn nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. The world was still in its infancy, but it was theirs. It was their creation, the first of many. The reality they had woven together had taken shape, and the universe, in all its infinite complexity, was now waiting for them to continue. Behind them, the being that had guided them, a cosmic entity, made of light, hovered silently, watching the process. It had given them the knowledge they needed, but now, the path forward was up to them. You've done well, the being said, its voice like a hum beneath the fabric of existence. This world will grow, and it will become a seed for many more. The power to create is now yours to wield. Vasquez stepped forward, his brow furrowed in thought. So this is just the beginning? We're really going to do this? Create whole worlds? Evelyn looked at him, her eyes filled with quiet resolve. Yes, but not all at once. This has to be done carefully. We can't rush. Each world will have its own purpose, its own role in the greater cosmic tapestry. We need to build something that's sustainable, balanced. The being nodded. Indeed. Balance is key. Creation is an art, but it is also a science. Each world will need to be nurtured. You must be the guides, not just the architects. Raj looked up at the sky, the bright stars sparkling like jewels against the dark canvas of space. But what if we make mistakes? What if the worlds we create end up being destroyed, like the old ones? The being's light flickered, but its Tone remained calm. Mistakes are inevitable, but remember, the universe is designed to adapt, to evolve. You will learn from your actions, and with every new world you will grow wiser. Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine, but not of fear, of understanding. The responsibility was immense, but so was the potential. They were not just shaping worlds. They were shaping futures. We can do this, Evelyn said, her voice steady. But we need to keep our focus. We need to make sure we create worlds that encourage growth, peace, and understanding. We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the old universe, Vasquez sighed. This is a lot to take in. One moment we're fighting an entity for our lives, and now we're expected to be gods? Raj smiled faintly. Not gods, just creators. We've been given the chance to rebuild, and we can't let that go to waste. The being's light pulsed once more. Exactly. You are not gods. You are the guides. And you must never forget that the universe is alive. It will test you, challenge you, and reward you. But ultimately, the future is in your hands. The creation process. The next hours passed in a blur of focused activity. Evelyn, Raj, and Vasquez worked together, overseeing the formation of the first city on their new world. It was a symbol of their commitment to building something sustainable, a place where life could thrive, not just in its physical form, but in harmony with the energy of the universe itself. The air hummed with the vibrancy of creation. Buildings rose from the ground as though they were grown from the very soil, constructed with the essence of the world around them. The flora of the planet responded in kind, taking root and sprouting rapidly as the land flourished under their watchful gaze. Look at this, Vasquez said, his voice filled with wonder. This isn't like anything we've ever seen before. It's alive, Evelyn. The buildings, the plants, they're all a part of this world. Evelyn nodded, her heart swelling with pride. It's our creation, but it's more than that. We've learned to align ourselves with the pulse of this universe, to shape it as it shapes us. Raj stepped back, wiping the sweat from his brow. It feels right. The energy here, the harmony. It's like the universe has been waiting for this moment. The world around them began to take on more structure, with bustling cities, clear roads, and healthy ecosystems forming where once there was only empty land. Yet, despite the stunning beauty of what they had created, Evelyn knew that their work had only just begun. We need to start thinking about how this world will evolve, she said, turning to face the others. What kind of life will it support? What kind of beings should we guide into existence here? The being of light appeared beside them again, its presence now warm, inviting. You've chosen wisely. The foundation is strong, but the true test will be what you create next. The life you bring to this world must evolve, must learn from the past and build a new future. Evelyn stood, gazing out over the landscape they had helped shape. We'll guide them. We'll teach them the values we've learned, the importance of balance, of growth, of understanding. Vasquez looked over at Raj. And what about the entity? What happens if it comes back? The being's light flickered in acknowledgement. The entity was a test. Its influence has been neutralized, but the threat of corruption is never far away. The true challenge is not defeating one foe, but ensuring the balance is maintained at all costs. Evelyn felt a deep understanding settle in her heart. Then we will guard that balance, she said, her voice unwavering. We'll be the stewards of this new universe, ensuring that it remains free from destruction and decay. The first steps into the future. With the first world firmly established, Evelyn, Raj, and Vasquez took their first steps into the broader universe, overseeing the birth of new stars, the formation of new worlds, and the creation of life in every corner of their new reality. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, they were no longer running from the darkness. They were creating light. The presence of the being remained at their side, a constant reminder of the responsibility they carried. It was not a voice of command, but a guide, showing them the way without imposing its will. The power to create was theirs, but so was the freedom to shape their own path. And as they continued to build, to create, to guide, they knew one thing for certain: the universe was alive, and it was theirs to nurture. The end, or the beginning. As Evelyn, Raj, and Vasquez continued their cosmic journey, they knew this was only the beginning. The universe had been reborn, and with it, the endless possibilities of creation and destruction. What would they build next? Would they face new threats, new challenges? Or would they continue to shape the future, one world at a time? Only time and their choices would tell. But for now, they were the architects of a new cosmic dawn, standing at the edge of the unknown, ready to shape the stars and everything in between. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know in the comments what ideas you would like the next story to be about. Please leave a thumbs up, share, subscribe, comment.